Hello and welcome once again. I am Ndi Amogo. We begin today with a strong decision by the federal government to ban under 18 candidates from sitting for the West African Senior School Certificate Examination and the National Examination Council. Well, the move has continued to spark reaction since it was announced. We know that the federal government introduced the sixth 3-3-4 system of education in 1983 and followed up many years later with a modified system, Universal Basic Education UBE, also known as the 934, with a curriculum expected to meet global best practices. It has, however, been noticed that since the implementation of the education policies, the enrollment of underage children into secondary schools has drastically increased, with many parents encouraging their children to skip primary 5 and 6 grades and sit for the West African Senior School Certificate Examination a year earlier in SS2. A major consequence of this is that immature students, who should still be in the controlled space of their parents, find themselves totally unrestrained in tertiary school environment. Will the federal government ban underage candidates will no longer be allowed to sit for the prerequisite examinations, that is WAEC, NECO, and UME, to gain admission into tertiary schools? Nigeria's former Vice President Atiku Abubakar thinks the decision is a cake and should be discarded. The Nigerian Union of Teachers and UT has condemned it, even as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, that is ASU, sees nothing wrong in the policy. Well, to help us make sense of the FG's ban and its likely implications for education in Nigeria, we have joining us in the studio an education consultant and school administrator, University-Okenwa. Chukuma, glad to have you join me this evening.
Thank you.
On the program. All right. For starters, there are two sides to this issue. Those for, those against. Now, the NUT condemns the ban. ASU supports the ban. Just an overview. What's your sense?
So what I think is there are two sides to this story, and let me start from the position of the minister, like actually saying that maybe those that are not up to 18 should not write WAEC and NECO. It's entirely a different issue than saying those who are not up to 18 should not be admitted. So we are talking about two things.
No,
you know, from yes. So looking at it this way. I think what the minister should say, and which is in tandem with the principle, and like when he also estimated it himself, that if we follow the 6-3-3-4, right, principle, then that means that at 17 and a half,
yep,
perhaps a child should have been done. The question is, if you are done with secondary at 17 and a half, would you also have to wait before you write WAEC and NECO? So that's on one ground. But let's say that maybe what we are now talking about now, it's admission age, which of course, like the university environment, we know students are thrown in, not trained like the foundational levels, where like you have like teachers, people watching over you, and constitutionally an adult, it's someone that is up to 18,
yep, and
education is a whole process, all encompassing. So personally, I see that as a step in the right direction, but of course, the reservation I have there is that it should not be a prerequisite to write WAEC or NECO. Because by then, from the calculation, students actually will just be like near the age of admission, but they should be allowed to write WAEC and NECO. They should not be stopped. So getting admitted and writing the examinations are two different things.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
If you're not up to, wait. That's what you're saying.
So what I'm trying to say is that if you are not up to 18, you can be allowed to write the examination.
But you wait. If you're not up to 18, I mean to enter.
To enter, these are two different things, right? These are two different things.
Okay. Well, so all right. So let me take it from the angle of those who are not, who treat both angles. I mean, not condemns the policy, argues that if it will work, it has to start from the foundation, because sometimes people get enrolled early. And we'll come to the issue of parents, who have some contribution to make in this. The question, ASU supports the ban, based on, of course, what you have said, 6334. And I say, what's the fuss about? Because is it really a ban? Because it's been there all along. Is it?
It's been there. Yeah, sure.
634.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So the question of emotional maturity comes in.
That's right.
You may be intellectually ready, emotionally immature, arising the question of susceptibility to negative influences in the university.
That's right. I quite agree with that. And what is actually very regrettable about like those saying, let's keep pushing the children, is the very fact that this is happening at the foundational level. You wouldn't try that in the university, no matter how bright you are, where you are allowed to skip third year. But it's almost like a norm. Now, at the foundational level, and question that parents has failed to answer is, every level has a requisite curriculum to be covered.
Yep.
So when your child jumped that level,
you miss
who is he leaving it for? And when you talk about universal basic education, it is compulsory. It is a right of every child. And process must be duly followed, because if anything, if there is a disconnect that happens at that level, it could affect the child all across. But since if we can't allow that in the university, such that when someone wants to take the master degree, so why are we going to allow that at the foundational level? I mean, it doesn't hold water. How about like in the US, where like the education policies, courses like medicine and surgery, you can only do that at second degree. Are you going to say I'm very brilliant, or my child is so brilliant, so he must start that as a first degree course? I mean, there is always like an age relation with that of education. It's a whole process. And another thing again that I found out, yes, apart from, in Nigeria, we love some forms of unhealthy competition. Because when people are even referencing like some of those developed nations, where they also have like a form of assessment for gifted, we call that gifted children. Now, when we want to do it in Nigerian own case, what we look out for is that, oh, this my brother's child, the child that was born at the same time with my own, I know my child is average, but I want that child to meet up in the same class, and I'm pushing the child. The question is, if a child finish at the age of 22 as against 24, is there really any much difference?
Let's look at these three issues. Do you envisage, because parents are also culpable, from what we're talking about, parents push, the competition things, parents push their words early enough, and they don't get the requisite maturity, which is quite dangerous. We talked about it. But then do you envisage the possibility of students falsifying their age to meet with this policy? That's one. The question of exceptional students. Some have argued that leave this, but create whether it's a school or something for them, if they're exceptional, where they can be groomed. Because there are exceptional students.
Yeah, that's right.
Who are very, and then this issue of, is there a possibility of legal action? On what plank would that legal action take place? And what's the probability that it would succeed?
Okay, so something that is very important. So we do not necessarily need to create a separate school for gifted kids.
Okay.
Just some form of aptitude test. Some children are just exceptional.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about maybe your child can solve basic mathematics.
No.
Or maybe English, like just everything about that child tells you that this is a genius. There are people like that. So some form of aptitude test to assess the level. And then also what we now begin to talk about is, okay, maybe at the higher institution level, creating safe spaces for them, right? Especially if it's in the public institutions. Because what is actually helping the country manage that is, if you have the wherewithal to send your child to like a private institution, then perhaps they are better cut out for.
Yeah.
Because it's like an advanced secondary school. There's still that care. There are times where you're expected to come back and all the rest of it, right? But if your child is thrown into the public institution where you just left on your own, there are activities by the virtue of age that someone that is under 18 is not supposed to take part in, right? And there's a problem with that. And then in terms of the Parents Association and some other bodies saying, okay, they could take a legal action, right? Well, two ways to it is that it's a policy. A policy is not a law, right? Exactly. Yeah, we see when CBN came up with the monetary policy of the new Naira notes, and some persons challenged it, except maybe the federal government then goes on, just like it did for the very first time. Now they will have a national anthem that have a legal backing by the law. The first one never did. And some also with this policy. it could be challenged. Because at the moment it's a policy, not a law. And it can be challenged. There's room for that, for that particular argument. But I think the executive could sponsor an executive bill to now move it not just as a policy now, but a law to have a backing.
Do you think there's a need? I'm just asking, I'm wondering. Is there a need to tinker with the 6334? I for one, let me even give myself an example. I passed to get into the secondary school at age 5. That is at class 5. But my father felt, my mother wanted me to go. My father felt, I wasn't matured enough. So hold on. So I had to retake at 6 and get into Fisher High School, Government College. That was Government College Umuahia. That was later Fisher High School. That was renamed into Government College Umuahia. So do you see any need to tinker with the 6334 system?
I think at the moment, that best serves the interest of Nigerians. And let me say something. The fact you have children who are able to pass at a lesser class doesn't make it right. Now, what do I mean by that? If the process says you have to spend 6 years, whether you can get it done in 4 years, that shouldn't be the issue. The issue is that if this is policy, if this is procedure, we should be able to, you can't go in 2 years,
particularly for the sake of children.
Just to sustain a system. Because when you have it, and I always tell people, individuals do not detect for institutions. Institutions detect for individuals. So if we have policy, policy is policy, procedure is procedure. So when we say it is 6 years, yes, I can do it in 4 years.
I don't know about that, because I know that one of the schools, universities, the university system was trying to raise, was it the fees, and the students said, no, excuse me. What I was about NEPA. The student says, no, excuse me. And now the government has tinkered with it and said, okay, we're giving 50% in the area of PHCN.
Okay.
They've given them 50%. So I don't
that's of course for the utility bills, right?
Yeah.
So students have right to speak up. But I'm talking about, how about if we have these students, maybe someday agitating, that 5 years for engineering or for pharmacy, they want to now do it in 3 years,
the whole system
right?
will scatter.
The whole system will scatter. So all of these parents should be patient and understand that if your child finish at 22...
So I'm arguing that parents are even the cause of the problem, because they want to push their kids.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly, because many children are not even thinking about that. So the competition is, oh, I want my child to finish at the same time with... And this push starts at the foundational levels. Right?
Yeah.
So, and also like in SS2, there is this trend of, let them also write WAEC and NICO, right? It's not all about passing the examination. The process is more important than the product. It is not the end that justify the means. It is actually the means that justify the end. So people should be thoroughbred, go through the whole process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's expected. You can't tell me now you go into the law school, no matter how brilliant you are.
You skip it.
Maybe you do that for 3 months or you just get into the practice saying,
well, can work.
Yes, I can do that and all the rest of it. So,
all right. Well, some argue that it's for argument's sake, because I mean the government has said it's been there. It's just that it's trying to be enforced. So why the force? But some are still arguing that this is misplaced priority. Some argue that government should concentrate on making schools more functional, address infrastructure deficits, improve teachers' welfare, and then the question of hypocrisy, where in some parts of the nation you have what you call undermarriages. And then now you're saying that children must have to wait to be 18. What's your sense
okay,
of
so let me say something.
Yes,
we know like just like Hamas submits, religion is the opium of the people, right? It's addictive. It could actually make people, so we know that there are some persons that sustain religious fanaticism, because I mean it's madness to give out a child in marriage.
It is.
A child is
it's
not
the
a
same
bride.
issue of emotional maturity.
Yes, but then it is now behooves on those religious institutions to begin to think globally, right? And address these issues, help to be a voice, because these are sensitive areas, anything religion. But for the role that the minister is playing at the moment, I see it as entirely mutually exclusive. Maybe expecting the minister to come up and say, oh, If you marry an underage child, I mean, it's illegal. Everyone knows the law makes it very clear that you are not expected to give out a child in marriage. But Nigeria, as secular as we are, we still have some laws that is not in tandem with the secular laws. And it's a problem. It should be a concern for every Nigerian that is educated to even begin to speak against those issues at the unit level. Because for instance, if I come up now as somebody from the Southeast to begin to speak consistently about that issue, maybe affecting one particular part of the country, it may just be like, what's your own problem? What's your own business? I mean, they have eminent sons from those areas that should be able to address those issues. The minister is only focusing on his own jurisdiction, which has to do with the process, right? And I mean, like, when this policy came up, interacting with some Nigerians, especially those who never really had opportunity of getting admission. You know, there's one dynamic we've not so much discussed.
Which is that?
And that dynamic is the fact that why the rest is waiting to be admitted, jumping 3-4 times, one exceptional child who have jump classes, right, will come and also clinch in that 25% admission slot that is available yearly. The person is still underage. While somebody is still struggling at 20 to gain admission, right? Somebody just come from nowhere
because of
at 16, pick up the slot that is available, right? I mean, if that should happen in work and in some other areas, those that are older, who fall like under the rest, they won't be happy. Now the so-called best, aside from the fact that the odds are against them, the jump classes, when the policy says this is compulsory, so you need to follow. Yes, so they should follow the process. So when we have that, one of the ways again, because I believe that in some of these little ways, we begin to make Nigerians begin to think that anything could happen. Like sometimes we could see someone getting a driver's license without really going through driving school. It's a problem. So at the end of the day, first school leaving certificate, you know that for you to qualify for that, there should be evidence that you've done that 6 years. But sometimes we see someone leave at class 5 in primary, get into JS1 and then come back to write that particular examination. Even things like now, maybe a transfer certificate, like sometimes you stop a child from jumping into JS1 in a particular school, the child can be taken to another school where the child is accepted without transfer certificate. So correcting some of these process errors could also give children that impression that we organized. We're a nation of policy. It doesn't matter who is involved. If this is procedure, you have to comply.
Follow the procedure. Well, on the side of those who are arguing for, there's this issue, of the high failure rate in WAEC. Last year, top scores from Ghana. Ghanaian students had top scores. And this is against 1.8 million Nigerian students who registered. The report has it that none achieved top scores. Is this a plausible argument on the side of the 6334 system?
Okay, so see the challenge actually with Nigerian education, right? And as it has to do with the children and even the Ministry of Education and parents alike. Now, every new minister, every new commissioner that comes up, most of the time focus on the product, the certificates, the public examination. How about improving the process?
I talked about it because it's now you're addressing it. I was going to go back to it, talking about functionality of the system, infrastructure deficits, making the environment better, and then improving teachers' welfare.
Yeah, that's right. So oftentimes we focus on just the outcomes, not the inputs. And it's a problem.
It is. That means you're dodging the process.
Sure. Because at the end of the day, the output may not reflect the input that has been put in. As we know, things are largely influenced by examination malpractice. And when you see someone get an A in Nigeria, that does not translate proficiency in that subject. You could see someone with an A1 in English language who cannot write a basic essay. It's very common, right? Maybe, there was a time even a WAEC wanted to employ, and one of the interviewer saw a student with A1 and decided in mathematics and asked the student, what is board mass? And someone with an A1 in mathematics could not explain what body mass is.
That's crass.
So it's a problem.
Something is wrong.
Right? Yeah, something is wrong. So focusing on the process is very much more important. And I think that sometimes, because we like all of the noise to be seen as acting, we tend to focus more on those ones that have, you understand? Like, I
mean, somebody says, it's not the million or the millionaire that you become that's the most important, but is what you're becoming to get to the million.
That's
because
right.
when the million is taken away from you, you can reproduce that million
Yeah,
again.
that's right. That's right. And I think that is what the education sector should be able to do. It should consign anyone that there is dearth of reading culture in Nigeria.
How do we solve that?
Yes. So I think one of the ways we can begin to solve that is, first and foremost, repositioning our values as Nigerians. So sometimes you could see someone engage in a pageant or in a reality show and the rewards is so high. But we saw like an institution 3 years ago, a student that made a first class was given 10,000 naira, right? So that should not happen. There should be more incentives. We want to see like, Nigerian government celebrate scholars, scholarly prowess, people that have got like research breakthroughs, children that are making the nation proud in terms of education. They could set up like some forms of reading exercise and competitions. The things you actually promote are the things that grow as a nation.
I've watched a film, I'm sure you know it's Spelling Bee.
Yeah. So the things you promote as a nation is what you're going to have. So it's all about like entertainment that everyone promotes without really promoting how things should be efficient in the classroom. I mean, young people are basically followers.
Yeah.
Looking to,
impressionable.
Yes, following what is the order. So currently in Nigeria, an average Nigerian want to either be in the sports or entertainment because they are well paid. And to tell you how much students can be influenced, like, the explanation I always give. So you can imagine like the illustration I always give. So you could come in a classroom, usually, right? In a classroom. And you see, if you ask all of them, what would you like to be in the future? Maybe children in primary. You discover they always name 6 professions. I want to be a doctor, a pharmacist. You already know all of those things. Nobody want to be a teacher.
Yeah, because of...
because of yes.
Not regarded highly or treated well. Let's just, doing a recap, what you said at the beginning. Can you take it again? Being able to still take the exam, I think.
Yeah, sure. So I think what the Honorable Minister should do, so that this policy will not be counterproductive, children should be allowed to take the public examination before 18.
Yeah.
What I think, yes, if they are not up to 18, that's before 18, yes. So I think what ASU is saying as an association is in terms of admission, they could wait till 18 before they are admitted, right? Yeah. But of course, if you are 17 and a half and almost preparing for school, it will be unfair maybe to wait till 18 to write the examination. And perhaps at the end of the day, in the course of trying to stop them not gaining admission before 18, you now delay further. So what you are actually trying to avoid, you end up. Yeah. So, but with that, I think it should be a perfect, like a kind of, the policy should be structured in such a way.
But then if parents allow the system, you go 6, 12, 3, you'll be 18.
Yeah, sure. Now, the thing there is that the argument, I mean, everyone is not born the same month, right? Everyone is not born the same month. So some children, right?
That's why the 17 and a half came about.
So what we always look at is, okay, perhaps before by the time you clock in your 6th birthday, right? Let it coincide with the admission year into primary school. So when you look at those dynamics, you now discover that it's flexible for different children. Some might be clocking 18 at that point. Some might just be some months away from 18. So you don't have to stop them from writing an examination.
Somebody was saying, is it proper? Why not? For me, why not? Is it proper to spend 6 years in secondary school and 4 years in university? I mean, just briefly.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's proper, actually. It's proper. I mean, there are also some courses in the university, like we know.
That's 6 years.
6 years, yes. So
I mean,
it's flexible,
yes.
It's
6.
6 years, yeah.
The housemanship, 5 or 1, and it makes
it
7.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, sure.
And law, the same thing. So,
yeah, sure.
All right, thank you so much. School Administrator University-Okenwa for being here and spending your time with us explaining these issues. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.